Today we are talking about, are you on track to have your best year yet? So the panelists that we have are Mr. Brian J. Gallagher, who is the founder of MEG. He always likes it when I use his middle initial, so I make sure to do that.
That is so not true. That is not true, but it's fine.
And then we have Alika Antone, who is the owner and lead PT at A2 PT. So thank you for joining us. He is a MEG Academy client, and we're going to talk with him very shortly. The topics that we want to cover today are, how do we know if you're on track for your best year yet? What are we kind of using to measure that success? What are the stats and metrics that you should be tracking? And then we're also going to talk about the habits of highly successful CEOs. So a lot of good content, a lot of good, exciting things to talk about today. We do have some resources available. We have our Best Year Yet kit, so please check that out when you get a chance. We also have our resource guide for the existing practice. So Matthew is going to throw that up as well. And then the final thing that I want to share with you is for a website analysis. If you're interested in getting that, please fill out this form and we will be in touch with you. Our next Zoomcast will be scheduled for next month. So stay tuned for what that topic is going to be. To kick us off, because I do think this is like the perfect time to see, have a pulse on your practice and see if you are on track to achieve your goals. But I think it's best to first explain is what describes success. How do we know if we're where we should be? So Brian, I want you to kind of start us off and tell us, what do you recommend to kind of have this analysis in place of, where you're at and where you should be?
All right, good. And I want to thank everybody for coming too. I think this is a great topic, and Nicole, you've done a lot of work putting this together. So I hope everybody really appreciates it. And following up after this Zoomcast, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help you and point you in directions, but obviously we've tried to make it as easy as possible with all these great resources. So my answer to that is simply on what dynamic. Okay, so the question of success has to be answered according to what dynamic you're actually talking about. Is it my personal success? Is it my group dynamic success? Is it my professional success, my practice success? So kind of the more things move away from you, the more objective they can kind of become, right? Like your own personal success to me is, what you measure for yourself is happiness, and as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that what gives me greater happiness is more time spent with the people I like, the people I love. And so what work can I do that facilitates a greater level of exchange of time for me to spend with the people I like and love most? And that's how I feel about my company. That's how I feel about the people I work with. And, even though we're in like 15 different states all across the United States with 50 some employees, we do this monthly, staff meeting. We get such rave reviews and we're so much ourselves, and, what you see is what you get. And that's probably what attracted you to MEG to begin with, because you didn't want a bunch of pretentious people. You wanted people that were real people. And so success for me is being connected to real people who really appreciate your humor, your spirit of play, your passion, your intention. Sometimes I think people get hung up on misemotion and lack of intention. Is that my mic? Is that getting weird?
Yes, it's very weird. I thought you went robot.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
All right. I think this new wire I just got for this headset just needs to go back to Amazon. I think Amazon's getting that wire back today. So look out, Amazon. So I think when I answer that question of success, I always think about that. I think about my wife, I think about my kids, I think about my coworkers, I think about my friends and extended family. And I say, am I living the life that enables me to have the time to have quality time and be able to be myself? I remember back when I was working. And Alika, you'll think about that when you started your practice. You've got 4 boys, and people are going to love to hear that story, right? And, how many hours could you put in, right? And when I first met you, you were like Mr. Mom, right? You were like handling the boys. You were doing the boys thing. And then you were very conscientious about, I'm all about building a successful business, but not at the detriment of my quality time with my children, right? And you have been able to thread that needle and be very successful at that. I didn't. I crushed it on just work. but I wasn't home for dinners, and I spent 2 nights at the clinic, and my wife had to bring me a change of clothes, and I just didn't have that work-life balance. And then I really needed to reflect back and say, well, what am I doing? Like, so many people who call us who want to be startup owners or have been open a year or two, and they look at their life and they're like, this isn't living the dream. I am not currently living the dream. And they're not saying that because the business is failing or not doing well or not paying the bills. Oftentimes it is, but they're not feeling like they're winning because they're not emotionally spending the quality time where they can be themselves. And I can't stress that enough. Having the time is irrelevant if you're mentally not with yourself, right? You're physically there, but you're mentally like, how many calls do I need to get next week? What's going on with that therapist who I just talked to for the 14th time about the same thing? That's not success. And then to move it to the next level, to me, I think that one has to be first and foremost. If you're not winning on that dynamic, everything else really doesn't matter, really.
So it sounds like you have to just be honest with yourself and say, what is it that I want that would, create success?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The numbers are important to an extent because you have to be able to keep your doors open and, take care of your group and, be able to employ people and keep the lights on, and all that is important. But if it's at the expense of your happiness, then isn't that truly successful? So how do we guide people to determine, what that ideal scene is? What tools can we use to kind of figure that out?
Well, what I found that works the best, and there's been a lot of things, and there's a lot of books and a lot of webinars and podcasts you can go listen to. So by all means, go find what works for you. As a physical therapist, private practice owner, having worked through this twice, having run the business up, sold it, run it up, and sold it again, I've come to find that what I need a mechanism of how to make time. You have to actually know how to make time. Time isn't outside of your control. It's totally within your control. How I make time: structure, organization, trust, and delegation. Those are my 3 steps. First, structure. Structure my life. Define for my kids, what are they doing to contribute to the household running well? What is my wife doing that I'm not doing? What am I doing that she's not doing? So we're not doing the same thing. And she can trust in me to do what I'm doing. I can trust in her to do what she's doing. And at work, same thing. What is Nicole doing that I'm not doing? What is Denise going to do that I'm not going to do? What's Allie going to do? So I built a management team around me. Now, let's say you're in a private practice with 5 or less people. You still need somebody to handle the admin for you so you can handle the clinical. You still need to outsource your billing and your accounting and your legal, because if you don't do that, now it falls on you. And there's only so many hours in a day that you can have. So again, my 3 big things were structure, delegation, trust and delegation, right? You need structure, trust and delegation, and massive organization, right? Like management action plan is what I said. You have to use a management action plan. You wake up, I open up my calendar, I put in my alarms, my meetings for the day, so it alarms me. I know the blocks of time I have. I look at my weekly management action plan of the things I need to get done. I pull 4 or 5 things off the list and say, these are the things I got to get done today before I go to bed. They have to happen. The rest can wait, and I'll get to that another day.
Yeah. And also a business strategic plan. So on a bigger scale,
Organization.
Right. And looking at the entire year and then mapping out where you want to be so that you can strategically work backwards and set those goals and targets as you go. Because
let me just say one more thing, Nicole. You're right about that, because you're going to get into the mechanics, and that's why you're bringing up the business strategic plan. I just wanted to answer that original question with one more step. Once you found what makes you happy personally, and you balance your personal, professional happiness and time and effort so that you're enjoying yourself everywhere you're physically at, you have to more objectively define what is your business success.
Yeah.
What is your professional success as a personal professional? Nicole has mastered the pay for performance model. She has mastered the stat tracking systems. She has mastered how to structure business plans and now marketing programs and plans. Self-taught, self-engineered, built up to enhance her professional skill set in these areas of systematic organization. And that's what you're getting from us here at MEG. While Nicole's investing her time in systematic organizational things, because she is a school teacher, as you know, I spend my time thinking about, the legal things and the business growth things and the scaling things and the opportunities and the communication side of things, scaling and expansion and, you know, income verticals and lease negotiation and things that she doesn't, you know. So surround yourself with people like that. So that goes to the trust and delegation thing. So I hope I've made my point. Personal first, then get more objective on what you want in your business and in your professional career. But you got to define them. You've got to have them defined.
And we also want a trust but verify situation.
Sure.
So those objective measures we do have to put in place to hold people accountable for whatever it is you're delegating out. And, you know, if you have the organization set up properly, you can set that up. So what are some of the key metrics, the KPIs that we're looking for within a PT private practice?
Well, first and foremost, I don't care where you're starting from. A really good rule of thumb, like if you're going to just take one and run with it, and I don't really have to think too hard about it, 15% growth. Okay. So whatever your GI was last year, let's say you brought in $1 million collectible, like collected $1 million, doesn't mean you net it, right? You have all your payroll and all your expenses, but you brought in $1 million, you want to up that by 15%. I think every good private practice owner needs to hold their feet to the fire to have at least minimum 15% growth. Now, many of us will pick greater because we've got new things coming online. We know what we're working on, right? So number one for the business, find that. Number two, company culture. I don't think you can be successful in any business if you're not putting some effort into how do I increase the objective satisfaction of my company culture. And how do I do that? You know, survey data, you know, games, rewards, prizes, engagements. Play it out, survey them, have them objectively score their satisfaction, and look at your employee retention. It becomes pretty clear to see those two things. So for me, it's patient satisfaction through net promoter scores. How well are they succeeding? How well are they flourishing and prospering? How well are they enjoying their experience? How well is the company culture going with my staff through surveys and objective survey answers, and tally that up? And don't just do it yearly, do it at least twice a year. And then financially, how well are we doing with our GI? Is that up 15%? And then let's look at our net. Is our net well over a 20% margin? You should, if you're a well-run physical therapy practice, you should be retaining 20 cents on the dollar. So those are I can drill down more specifically. There's all different size clinics, all different income verticals, all different services. If you want to talk about yours specifically, we can definitely do that. But just as something for everyone kind of thing, 20% net revenue, 20% margin operating on a month-to-month basis, number one. Number two, 15% GI growth. And then 3 and 4, net promoter score, patient satisfaction, super high, and company culture objectively measuring with good employee retention and people who are really loving being there.
Yeah. And those are all great CEO metrics. Just understanding that, you know, there are divisional metrics that you're going to want, and post specific metrics. So we have the 64 key metrics that we have. And, you know, we really have it drilled down to what's going to support the metrics that you need to get at the CEO level.
I wanted to give you that 30,000 foot,
sure.
Everything's pushing up to there, but you have the file vault, you see the statistics, you see the long metrics and the, you know, and obviously the materials are there, you see that. And Nicole, you could point out the divisional, you know, each divisional statistic as you want, but those are very objective. You guys need to hold yourself to those.
Right. Absolutely. I want to talk to Alika a little bit, because I think he's going to give us some firsthand perspective of, you know, what he's learned through the MEG training. So Alika, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your practice?
Sure. My name is Alika Antone, and I'm 44 years old. Been practicing for 15 years and have had my small private practice outpatient ortho clinic for 5. Excuse me. Been working with all of you guys at MEG for most of that time. We do have a division that we run called A2 Athletics, which is kind of our wellness division, which has been very healthy for us. But it gives us a little bit of a niche in our market. There's not we're starting to see a lot of PT clinics starting to implement it, but I think we dove in first, and that was with Brian's guidance. So that, I think that's what makes us a little bit unique. That, and we have a heavy newbie presence on both the rehabilitation side and the wellness side.
We love that differentiator.
Yeah.
That is, you know, you had a service and then you added an additional advanced service that nobody else had in town. And I've been saying that from every broadcast I get. If you're not looking at the newbie as one of your potential income verticals, it's somebody else is.
Yeah.
And now, sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, I want you to feature like what you've done in the past year, despite COVID.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about, you know, how you are having your best year yet.
Yeah, so we've recently, we're getting ready to open our second clinic in a neighboring city. One of my goals this year was to write a children's book, and we're in the midst of getting ready to release that in September, and the new clinic will open in September. And those were, well, the book was my personal goal, but like Brian was saying, our team, we meet every November to set goals for the following year that we want to accomplish as professionals and as a team. And it was their goal to expand to Gig Harbor in 2021, because we had been talking about it for a couple of years. And so, yeah, and that's where it's been quite a year.
That's awesome, Alika. What a team effort.
That's amazing. So what led you to want to open your own practice? What, you know, kind of was inside of you that said, I have to do this?
The real straightforward answer to that is I wanted to be in charge of my time. I wanted to work like a wild banshee during the winter if I wanted to, and maybe take a little bit of a lighter summer, or maybe coach baseball if I wanted to. So that was the real big straightforward answer. But I kind of joke with people that I was somewhat tricked into it, because all of the honeymoon part of the business, where you get to create your logo and you get to generate funding and you get to pick out what your space is going to look like, it's really fun. It's really exciting. And then you get into the hard stuff. And
so what is the hard stuff, and what kind of guidance can you give for maybe our startups, you know, who don't have existing practices? What kind of takeaways or insight can you give for them to kind of persevere through it?
Okay, I don't want to sound like a broken record player, and these are going to sound very, very simple, but it was the communication rules that were provided by Meg have saved us and allowed us to progress, just based on having the team abide by and understand those rules and communicate efficiently. The structure that was given, and I hopefully don't have, I mean, with all the documents, the file vault, everything that was given to us, allowed us not to have to, those things take a lot of time. And so we were able to utilize Meg's systems and documents. And then the last thing was having a coach, and I think, Brian, you say raise the level of necessity. Like, yeah, that has been, I think, a very strong underlying theme for us. Brian, when you came in and we were doing 30 to 40 visits a month, and you said, we need to get to 100 visits a week and 9 evals a week or something like that, I think our staff was just thinking, that guy's crazy.
Yeah.
He is a little bit, but it's true. Yeah. You needed to do that.
Sure. I'll wear that.
Yeah. We had a hard time breaking through that plateau, and you wonder, are we doing this right? And you just follow the recipe, and then before you know it, you look back and you're like, oh wow, we're at 130, 140 visits a week. So I think those three, they seem very simple to talk about, but to implement and to have somebody helping you and pushing you, those were tremendous for us.
What can you say to those that are maybe considering, you know, a shift in the way that they do things? but they're worried about the staff resistance. Because I'm sure you had some people saying like, what are we doing here? You know, why this big change? How would you advise them, or, you know, talk them through if they're kind of thinking along those thoughts?
Oh, well, you will, unfortunately, you will find who's in and who's going to be there with you and help you, and kind of the people who probably were causing resistance and maybe not a good fit, that will kind of come to the surface. And it's tough, but after the fact, you'll look back and think, oh man, what a positive difference that made. So I know it's a little daunting, and but another one of Brian's things is there's no awkward conversations. You, as a business owner, you have to get used to knowing that those conversations are out of love and out of the overall goodness for you and your team, and that it's going to be a win-win in the long run. But in the short term, yes, those are tough conversations to have.
Yeah, quick inside scoop. We actually just covered this in our like Zoom coaching call for a group forum for our members. And that topic came up. We're like, yeah, and you know, not to get into it too much, but parting ways is not necessarily a bad thing. It's helping somebody find what the best fit for them is. And I think, you know, having that perspective of kind of coming out of that love, you know, where you're trying to get them to live their best life too, is a great perspective to hold. So I think that's really, really good insight.
You know, because, you know, Nicole, it's easy because if you get to meet Alika and you get to know Alika and you talk to him, for those of you who may have called him as a reference or whatnot, you know, one thing's for sure is like, there's no one I know who doesn't like Alika, right? If you don't like Alika, I know one thing, it's not him, right? So he's just a nice person to everybody, and he's just very inclusive of everything he's trying to do. He's very conscientious, but he had to learn early on that he has to hold the line for what's the greater good for the greatest number of people. He's not, you know, the Wizard of Oz who's there to grant everyone's wish. He has to stay on his mission. And I think that goes to our Zoomcast that Nicole was just referring to that we did last week. Letting someone go may be staying on your mission. And it may help that person stay on their mission, because if they're not winning here, they could be winning somewhere else. I think, Alika, once you got that perspective, you went from employee running a PT clinic to employer running a PT clinic. And all of a sudden, those challenges weren't so daunting for you. Before I knew it, you changed your flow from trying to market the fitness and wellness to fill PT. You started marketing PT that filled fitness and wellness. You reversed the curve. That made a huge difference. And next thing I know, Alika's numbers are going up. He's doing good. He's forward thinking. He's like, hey, Brian, why don't you come out and do some coaching with me? I'm thinking about buying this building. Do you mind meeting with the landlords and talking to me? And next thing you know, he and I are working it out, and I help him buy the building. You know, he actually pulls it on. Next thing you know, he's opening a second clinic. So if you have the burning desire, if you know that's your mission, and you have the genetic potential to do it, don't stop yourself. Because I can tell you where Nicole's going next, 9 out of 10 people, when they hear your story where you want to go, they're all going to tell you how it's not going to work, how it's not going to succeed. And those oftentimes are the people that are closest to you, your family members, your cousins, your aunts. Alika's got a huge family tree, and they're all successful in business. And all I heard from them in his ear is warning, warning, danger, danger. He had to like put earmuffs on for some of those folks and say, I'm going to still do it. I'm going to forge ahead.
Yeah, and of course, Brian is getting ahead of ourselves. We're going to talk about CEO habits.
Yes.
He's giving you a little teaser, but before we hop into some of these successful habits, because it's going to give you a little sneak peek into some of our CEO and executive training, I do want to let everyone know that we are restructuring our kind of, I guess, product service line, where we are now, for the first time ever, chiseling out a la carte options at a much lower price point than what we've previously been able to do, because we're growing and expanding, and we understand that not everybody needs every part of our MEG training. So
at one time,
right. So the CEO and executive training, which we're kind of, featuring here, I want you to reach out to us and learn more about that. And again, it's, you know, at the all-time low entry point. So now is the time to learn about it if that's what you're seeking help on. So that being said, let's hop on over to some of these key habits to get into. And I like calling them habits because I think, you know, that's like a digestible chunk. You know, we can get into a good habit of exercising every day or, you know, eating healthy meals. It's the same thing with your professional development. You know, getting into these good habits will help improve your chances of success. So the first one, and this is a classic Brian Gallagher, is to envision your ideal scene. That is like the first question that we ask people, like, what is your ideal scene? Where are you looking to go? And why do we say that, Brian J. Gallagher?
We say that, and Alika, you know, I want you to think about what your ideal scene was, and I want you to share it with the crowd because I definitely want to hear from you. But I always say it very, very simply. You can't paint a painting that you can't envision it first. If you can't see it in your head, there's no point in reaching for the brush. You have to envision what you're going to create. I feel business is art. I think it's what you're creating. And I think if you are not content for the rest of your life being an employee, you are more of an artist. You're ready to develop more for yourself. And you can be an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur. I'm not saying you don't have to, you're not going to be happy and successful being an entrepreneur with somebody else owning some shares and you're developing it and that senior owner is just letting you do it. So you don't have to be the one flicking the whole bill and holding everything. You could be an entrepreneur, but one thing's for sure, you're not happy just working and exchanging time for money. So envision your ideal scene, kind of like when you got married or when you're trying to get married or looking, it's what do you look for in that partner? What kind of life are you envisioning? Do you want to, you know, have 3 kids, 4 boys? You don't want, you know, Nicole's got 13, you know, whatever it is you want, you have to envision it and then go for it, right? You want to have some degree of freedom. And I will end with this. And I want Alika to share his ideal scene. One thing I know about Alika that was just so like he wore it on his sleeve, like, and he even led with it. He even led with it in 5 minutes ago. Why did he open private practice? Because he knows how important it is to be at cause, to be in control, to have the steering wheel of his life, not be the passenger in his life. He doesn't want to, when I first met him, he just had that in his eyes, like, this is good for now, but I'm definitely not going to be doing this for my whole life. I am much more comfortable driving the car of my life than being a passenger in it and watching things happen around me. If that's you, that's how you feel, then don't let fear, hesitation, worry, concern, doubt stop you. And Alika is a perfect example of that because he never has.
True, Alika. You can concur.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good.
What was your ideal scene when you went after it? Because I know the boys and Jen and, you know, the business, you talked a lot. You didn't leave anything off the table. You looked at the whole scene.
Yeah, the ideal scene for me was definitely, I can't remember which book I read, but they talk about how we struggle for work-life balance and how people struggle with that on too short-term of a basis. Like they're thinking week to week or day to day, how they're going to create this work-life balance. And one of the best pieces of advice that I found was you think of it in seasons. And so there was I think it was more of a personal fitness trainer guy that said, hey, in the first 2 quarters, my family knows that I'm heavily invested in work and that slight balance is shifted to work. But then we take 3 months and we go to Mexico and work is all dialed in and work knows that that's my family time, those 3 months. And even though there's a little bit of mixture of all of it, when they're in Mexico, that it's 80% family, 20% work. And so that was what I was striving for. My ideal scene was to create something where, again, during the spring, I could coach Little League or I could dial back a little bit for 3 months and be very present with family and with the kids and not miss out on that part. And so that's what I've been working for. And you've been helping me create and pursue. That's the word.
I love this because this like feeds directly in to the next habit, which is to reframe your expectations. I think, sometimes we get these owners who are very like type A, gung-ho, go-getter, personalities, which is great. And it allows you to be successful in this field. But we also have to understand that human performance is variable. And, we can peak and then followed by a lull. And we have to understand that that's just normal kind of curve. So if we're going hard all the time and you get to that point where you're feeling this like burnout, before that happens, you got to cut yourself some slack or factor that into the schedule, so that you can regroup and re-energize. And, Brian and I do a lot of the creating on Meg Academy. And I just asked him last week, okay, what day and time, like what time frame can I work within where we're going to schedule the meeting?
She did.
Because I want your most creative Brian self
Yeah.
when we're talking about development, because I want to give you his best, when we develop this content. And it's true, like, he like rattled it off between 9 and 12. I need a meeting scheduled between 9 and 12. This is when I work best. This is when I can think best. And I find myself, kind of gravitating the same way. Or, I know when I'm out on a walk or a run, I can just free my mind. That's when I do my best thinking. So just being in tune with yourself and what you need in order to get the most out of, what you're looking to accomplish, whatever that might be. So I think, that transitioned very nicely to that next habit.
That was a very good point, Nicole. I don't think a lot of people self-reflect enough to know that their human performance is variable throughout the day or the week. I know certain days of the week, I'm much more in the mindset of work, and other days, not as much. And Alika, to your point, seeking that work-life balance. And as you said, it doesn't mean you're not going to work hard for stretches of time and put in and where it's going to be out of balance. That's okay. But you kind of put everybody on alert, right? I remember telling my wife, I'm not going to be home 5 nights a week for dinner. I might be home 2 nights a week for the next 4 to 6 weeks. We're rolling this out. We're rolling that out. I'm not going to be available Saturday and Sunday every weekend for family things. I'm going to be available Sundays. I'm going to need Saturdays. And everybody's agreement got on board with that for this window of time. This is the new, and Nicole knows, I will, as things shift in our world of business development, I issue new Brian calendars to all of my key employees and say, here's my new work calendar, and I'm going to try and stick to it. And then Nicole always follows up with me 3 weeks later, like, you sticking to that? Are you still doing that? Are you?
I am a little bit his mom, just a little bit.
She's like, you have a block of time. Why are you talking on this meeting? You're supposed to be doing professional enhancement. You should be reading a book. You're supposed to be doing that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, girl, I'm going to lose an eye.
No, I think
right out of my head.
But I think it's a good point, and to write it down and write it in, and in comboing it up. Like, I do love the exercise combo with some professional development. Like, I will say, okay, I'm going to listen to this podcast or whatever, so that I get it. You guys are busy, and multitasking is like, you have to. I understand that, but expose your kids to it. Like, put it on in the car when you're like on the way to a sporting event.
They absorb it. They absorb it. Nicole's the biggest influencer for me lately on my podcast. She got me to realize that people need quicker sound bites. They need more intense. They don't need everything in the kitchen sink in every podcast. So our podcasts are now 15 to 20 minutes. 15, 20 minutes. I'm going to take one rich topic and I'm going to hit it. I'm going to hit it hard with energy and fun and enthusiasm, give you the tools, because, our podcast reputation is you walk away with the ability to apply. You don't walk away with some bright idea. So I'm always going to give you thoughts, but I'm also going to give you application. We're going to do this in 15, 20 minute segments. Now I think there's going to be so much more interest in a podcast I don't have to listen to for 40 minutes.
And there's something to be said for the accountability factor. If you like have a little desk calendar and say, okay, I did my 15, 20 minute training today, and now I could put it X, and my goal is to get, 4 X's in a row. And then next week, I'm going to try and get 5 X's. And then I'm going to try and not break my chain, so like small little goals for, accommodating this professional enhancement will, you know, lead to a bigger return on the end.
So 2 real big tips of success that we just gave you. Number 1, put a block of time in your week, multiple blocks, at least 1 block for your own personal enhancement. That could be, for me, I'm studying to be a pilot, hence the shirt. Oh, there it is. I went to Oshkosh.
There it is. I was waiting for it. Oh,
I was in Wisconsin, and you know, Nicole's talking about eating and treating your body right. She's like texting me, "Did you do the cheese curds? Have you eaten cheese curds?" I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I look it up. I'm like, that's a clogged artery. I'm so not eating that. So put aside your block of time for your personal and professional enhancement. For me, it's got to be at least 2 hours a week. Number 1, and number 2. Literally sit down on your computer and create your weekly schedule and send it out to your wife, your husband, your partner, and your coworkers, your lead team. They all need to know what you're trying to do so they can, you know, respect your time, and then you're going to be that much more efficient. Alika, is that how you are able to juggle the family and work? I mean, what is one of the successful actions you've adhered to that has helped you be successful? I mean, you went from 0 to now 2 clinics, owning your building. People definitely want to hear how you did that.
Yeah, but I'm glad I'm not the only one that struggles holding to my schedule.
Yes.
That conversation sounds familiar. That sounds like Laurel with, you know, are we still doing this, or did that change?
Yeah.
No, like basically what you said is based on your advice. I tried to do it like you do it, where every time something shifts, and as business owners, we know those things shift quite probably more than we want them to.
Right.
We create a new schedule, and that's like your business strat plan for your life. And you know, one thing that I got a tip for success here is I wasn't really sharing that with enough people around me to let them know what was going on so that they could facilitate to help you be efficient.
Yes, everybody got to listen to what Alika just said. It takes a village. Until he used his communication skills to let them know, and he was more transparent about what effect things were having on him, and that he needed this bubble of time. He needed people to block his door and respect. Then he was able to be that much more effective. You can be too, but you got to let everybody know the hours you're available, the hours you're not.
Yeah. And then the weekly Friday, Saturday, just being consistent with looking at the stats.
Yes.
And
yes.
I don't know, we're still using MBS.
Fine.
So we look at that every week, and what that does is it allows us to make minor adjustments before they become big problems. And big problems take a lot more time to resolve. Whereas if you can just make slight adjustments based on how the statistics look, it's pretty smooth sailing.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect
absolutely.
advice.
Having a good pulse on it on a weekly basis is important. One of the other CEO habits I want to talk about, and Brian, you kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, is to seek counsel, not opinions. So what do we mean by that?
So I have a lot of people who will come in and they'll do the practice assessment call with us, which is great. And I'm talking about them and where do they want to go? And I can just hear it. It's like scripted. Like I heard this from this, or I read this and that. And I'm like, whoa, block all that out. What do you want? What works for you? What is your dream? Based on blah, blah. No. So listen to other people, us included, and ask yourself, does this person have a track record of success in the area that I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do? Does this person have the evidence and the proof and the history? Are they knowledgeable in my industry, in my uniqueness? Everyone likes to think their business is unique, but physical therapy really truly is unique. I mean, it is in-house, out-house, in-network, out-of-network, cash-based, not cash-based. So many nuances. Billing is like, you cannot have a medical biller doing your billing. You need physical therapy specialists to do your billing. So keep your own counsel. Seek information, seek knowledge, seek enlightenment, but keep your own counsel. You cannot think with what other people's opinions are on things. You have to literally develop your own. Take it as a nugget of knowledge, and then think about how you can use that to catapult where you are going, what you're trying to do. That's my advice on that. That's why we're coaches and we're not consultants. We're coaches. I'm always trying to facilitate your ideal scene.
and align yourself, with
Right.
not just the coaches, which, that's important, but also, we've getting the right, insurance people and the right billing
Right.
company and the right outsourced services that you need guidance on. So, and I think that's one of the benefits of being around for as long as we've had, is we've been able to kind of foster those relationships with the people that are going to help deliver those services for our clients.
And Alika, I think you could add a little to this. I think what's really great is we've taken the decentralization off of us. This isn't the Brian Gallagher show. This isn't the Nicole show. Yes, we have some value to add. And yes, we have some effort to push into it, but we built a membership. We have a membership of hundreds, if not thousands of PTs and PT owners now across the country that are inside our network. So when you join and you're working with us, you're hearing from others who've done what you're looking to do, and they're sharing their experiences with you. So fulfilling to hear from other people's perspectives. Throw your question in that Slack channel, see 10 people chime in and give you answers, thoughts, ideas, connect you to things that you didn't know. Two definite landmines to failure. And I just want to touch on it with this particular topic. Number one, the do-it-yourselfer mentality. If you want to be that I don't even know how you do it. DIY, do it yourselfer. I'm telling you, every single minute you're spending doing something that somebody else should be doing for you, or you can have somebody else doing, is taking you away from those mission critical things that only you should be doing. Yes. You're sitting there spending your time pumping out your own claims. You're spending your time doing your own credentialing. You're spending your time, changing the light bulb and the toilet paper.
Posting on social media.
Posting on social media. I have owners. I'm like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. What are you doing? You got to be focusing on, one, getting paid for the services you do and overseeing the financials. Two, building the company culture that you want. Three, enhancing the patient care experience in the community as well as the patient inside your office, so you can track more new business. If you're not doing those three things, I don't know what you're doing as a PT owner. Those are the things. Everything else gets handled in your structure. It's getting done, but it doesn't have to be done by your two hands. So the do-it-yourselfer mentality, number one. And number two, the emotion connected to money. Recently, I've had a rash of people come in and they're just too emotionally connected to money. I can't spend that money on this. I don't want to spend money on that. Ooh, that's too expensive for that. I'm like, you need to think like a business owner. What is your ROI? What is my return on investment for that investment? I mean, Alika, when you went after that building, it wasn't cheap, but you looked at the long-term game plan. What would you say about that? How has that helped you in your business model?
Oh, it allows for a lot of flexibility, obviously, in controlling the space, controlling cash flow and what we're charging ourselves for rent.
Sure.
Leveraging, we haven't yet, but hopefully soon we'll be able to leverage the equity in it. And one of my financial goals is to be transparent. We've struggled recently with getting loans and getting lines of credit. I think it's because we've grown pretty fast. So we're always spending. Right. And so at some point I kind of got a little frustrated. I'm just like, my goal is financially to be able to borrow money from myself. I don't want to do another bank application.
Yes.
I'm tired of going through this process. And, we still got work to do, but I think the building has helped us. We will get there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you're so in tune with that. And look, even after this call, I have PTs who are so successful sitting on cash now from the last year, and they're willing to privately invest and privately fund. So if that's of interest to you too, or any of you listening, I have PTs that can start a private practice on $35,000 to $100,000. And I got PTs that'll fund you, like literally fund you for it. Sit back and you don't even have to make a monthly note payment. They'll just sit back and ride it out with you. And then you buy them out 5 years from now when you have the cash. So there's lots of good options when you're in a network like this. That's just one thing off the top of my head.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get to the last habit because I know we're running low on time here.
Yeah.
But the last one is one of my favorites and it's a quote by Tom Bilyeu, who said, "Become so good, they can't ignore you."
This is all you, Nicole.
I think this applies so much to our PT world, where we don't want to be just another box with some, heartbeats in them and
Yeah.
operating like everybody else. I think you need to be different and stand out and have your skills honed and have your, you know, differentiators implemented into your practice, like the newbie, or whatever it is that you're passionate about, to make you look different than everybody else. The other piece of that, and Brian, I think you brought this up, I think this is a really good point, is become so good is not just about, you know, getting good at myofascial release or whatever technique. It's also about your communication skills, knowing how to talk, you know, with people and be able to be an active listener and to have that level of confront and to effectively implement your organization into your company and really hold people accountable. Those are all skills that will help elevate you as well. Because if you can do that and create that good company culture, you'll retain employees, you'll attract new employees, and you'll create an atmosphere that people want to be a part of. So I think that is my nutshell summary of become so good they can't ignore you. Do you have anything to add to that, Alika?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, and that culture is so important, and it's what people are looking for. One of the things we say is a third of your life is sleep, a third of your life is work, and a third of your life is everything else. So if you're going to spend a third of your life at work, it should be a very positive place, place with good. And I mean, that's what I choose to come to. And so the team knows that, hey, a third of our life is here. We need to be kind to each other. We need to communicate well with each other. And then, you know, you can go on and on from there. A big tool that Brian's given us too is everyone understands that there's a balance between the team, our clients, and the feasibility of the business. And they all learn how hard it is to balance that. But once they understand that that's what we're here for and that's what we're trying to do, then everybody, it's easier to communicate, and the mindset is, and the culture is where we want it to be. So they're very important.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Brian, do you have anything to add?
Mm-hmm. I want to give one really good, applicable, successful action on this concept that Nicole just brought. Here it is. Like Nicole said, you have to be a differentiator. Like Alika was saying, you have to be an effective communicator because those things will separate you. Excuse me.
Oh, geez. Wait for it, guys. It's going to be worth it. I promise.
Oh my God, I felt that coming. So sorry, everybody. When you do your eval, go over the findings with your patient and tell your patient you have 2 jobs to do. Number 1, be here for every single appointment, because if you're not here, I'm not going to be able to follow through with the plan of care and advance your care. And number 2, do everything that we give you to do at home so you're 100% compliant with the activities I've given you. I'm going to take care of all the rest. We're going to handle your schedule. We're going to handle your advanced orthopedic sports medicine training. We're going to handle your manual therapy needs and your modality needs here. What that does is it sends the message to the patient that you just made me a partner in this care. I'm not a patient to you. I'm the therapist. You're the patient. You're just like everybody else. No, I've just Velcroed us together, and we're going to take this journey down this plan of care together. And I'm actually going to shake your hand because you're going to acknowledge to me, you're going to do that part and I'm going to do this part. Most patients are like, no PT has ever said that to me, let alone shook my hand on it. You're really in this to win it with me. That's how my clinic ran. That's why we have those tools in the file vault, you know, PT order slip, the coaching video that I just gave you this example. This is the kind of higher level executive stuff we put in Meg Academy so that your patients go home and go, you're not going to believe what my experience was today in PT. It wasn't like when I went to ABC therapy that had 400 clinics across the country. I literally felt like I was just a patron there. This person like embraced me as part of their family and really wants to work with me all the way through to a done. They're going to tell 10 more people. So that's my message on that, Nicole. I think that's an awesome concept that you just put out there. But again, thoughts and ideas and great thinking is one thing. Great doing is effective skill application. And that's what we're most about.
Yeah, and that communication piece is so important. And, unfortunately, I think a lot of our owners struggle with staff who come out of school who know how to check the boxes and do all the range of motion and strength tests, and
Right.
but they have not learned those soft skills of being able to effectively communicate and get people to understand the importance and gaining agreement with the plan of care. That all needs to be practiced, and it can't just be told like, oh, you have to do that, because like you said, then you can't apply it. It needs to be practiced. They need to be coached. They need to be mentored. So this is all an important part of, investing in your staff.
So many young owners come and say, I've never been trained on those leadership skills. I don't know how to communicate to somebody
Right.
about something that I don't agree with, like they're doing something I don't agree with. I need to respectfully communicate with them in disagreement with where they're at. And the number one thing we coach is don't sit and take the viewpoint from their set of glasses. You have to communicate from your set of glasses in manners,
Yeah.
granting them their beingness, but at the same time, remaining the leader. Remaining
Yes.
the leader. If you can lead the conversation, grant them their beingness, and do it in manners, you can manage anyone. It's just
Yep.
that simple, but you need to
Right.
role play it. And that's what Nicole's really saying.
Yep.
And Alika and I, we've done lots of coaching together. We've done coaching sessions through Zoom. We've done coaching sessions live in Tacoma. That's what's great about Meg. We can do it live. We can do it Zoom. We can do it virtual. It's whatever you need.
Right. Exactly. And that brings us to our closing thought, which I don't know how we're going to have more insight, because I feel like this has been like chock full of information this time. So thank you, Alika and Brian, for both contributing so heavily. But I do want to leave our listeners with this like final tip. And what message would you have for PTs who currently are struggling to achieve that ideal scene right now, who maybe are taking a pulse and are like, oh, shoot, I'm not really on track to where I need to be? What words of advice can you have for them?
Me or Alika? I think Nicole's handling her dog.
Sorry, you, Brian.
My word of advice is, number one, August and September of every year is when I get off the bus and I re-examine where are we this year. Are we on target? Are we on course to hit our annual numbers, our annual targets, our annual growth, or not? Because if you do it in August and September, you have enough time to recover and finish a positive year. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, if you're struggling to achieve your ideal scene, it's typically because you went into agreement with somebody else's consideration. Try to stay connected to people who only support your considerations, your thoughts. They're not yes men. I'm not saying that, but don't ignore the fact that some people closest to you, could even be your spouse, could even be your parents. They could actually take away from your energy. They could take away from your momentum because of their considerations, because of their hesitations, because of their emotion to money. I mean, how many PT startups have we done, Nicole, for under 100,000? For less than a Tesla, we're going to put you into an office within 24 months. You're going to be making $150,000 a year. Yet you spend $150,000 to go to PT school to make 75. I can't figure this out. Like, how is this? The training with us is, I don't even know that the money you'd spend with us would even buy you a car. I mean, it's like that cheap, right? So everything is in perspective. And if you want to know more, just reach out. We're happy to help you. Don't make it about the money. Make it about your life. Where do you want to live?
The investment.
In you.
Yes.
In you. It's the money's not going into some BMW. It's going
Correct.
in you. And that, I'm happy to say I'm going to be seeing Alika soon in another couple months. And my top performers are the ones that just have me out once a year. Every year, we just kind of re-examine how do we take it to the next step, or we do it virtual, or they're just getting so good with everything they're getting in Meg Academy, no need for me to come out.
Well,
I'm happy
very
with
good.
anyone.
Alika, can you share with us what your advice would be?
Yeah, genuinely, number one, I believe we need coaches. So a CEO needs a business coach. I have a mental performance coach. I have a personal trainer because I need to be held accountable to work out. So we all need a coach. We get to choose our coach. There's a lot of business coaches out there. the way I see it, and I know that I'm on a Meg podcast, but I'm being very genuine here. You know, Brian's been in and out of 400 physical therapy clinics nationwide. I can't imagine there's more than 4 or 5 people who could say that. And who's better? To me, I don't think that there's a better business coach, and I think that's a huge part of our success. So that's my advice. I know it's kind of, I know I'm on a Meg podcast, but I'm not getting paid for this. But no, you guys have been truly a key part of why we're at where we're at.
Well, we really appreciate that because we think Brian's pretty great too. But I do think that, you know, we get a kick out of helping people. So when you can vouch for us and we have the ability to help even more people, I think that's just an amazing gift. So thank you for sharing that. My advice would be is, because I do think maybe we'll talk to people that haven't created a business strategic plan, didn't, January 2021 create the plan for, you know, where they want to be in December. But I think it's not too late. You know, the time is now. Start now, and you take the time to write it down, because putting it in black and white and putting it on paper and writing it down makes it tangible and makes it real. So I think that is an important step to take. Don't just, you know, it's good to envision it in your head, but put it down on paper so that you can hold yourself accountable. I loved what you said, Alika, about, you know, making sure you get people aligned with you to make sure you're held accountable in those different areas. And I think that's important. And it's also important to just, you know, hold yourself accountable to yourself. So that is my advice and my message. I thank you all for taking the time to listen. As always, we really appreciate you doing that. So thank you. And if there's nothing else, then we are going to say,
I'm with you, Nicole. I just want to thank everybody for their time, because I know there's a lot of things out there you can do. And I'll say this as we're departing on time. If you're looking to open your second office, or you're looking to open your first office within the next 6 to 18 months, that's the time you should go find yourself a coach, whether it's us or somebody else, but that's the time you should get engaged. You should engage with a group 6 to 18 months from when your doors open. That's going to give you the runway you need to be most successful. So if you need that metrics, that's the metric we go on. So that's my last parting tip.
yes. And thank you again, Alika.
Thanks, Alika.
All right. Bye,
All
guys.
right.
Oh, I love it.
Love it. Come in.
Aloha.
Yeah.
Aloha.
The